Teresa,
Tim,
hello. Welcome to Kindling.
thanks.
So you, Teresa Torres, are a product consultant and you maintain a most excellent blog at producttalk.org. One of
right.
my favorite blogs, and you write frequently about product management and innovation, and it's really great. And you've informed a lot of my thinking, and by extension, a lot of the thinking of Kindling and our product and our customers. So it's really great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So when I take a look at your writing on the topic of product management and innovation, I see a central theme that emerges. And I'm curious how you react to the theme that I've picked up. The theme that I pick up on is communication. And I think a lot of the most effective companies and the most effective teams are those who are the most effective communicators. How does that ring with you, that that's a central theme of yours?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know that I would have put it that way. I think my tagline is make better product decisions.
Sure.
And I really look at it as how do we help people make good decisions.
Okay.
But you can't make good decisions without good communication.
Sure.
And certainly a lot of things that I write about come down to how do you communicate when everybody on your team has different expertise.
Right, and this stuff is a team sport.
Absolutely.
So what do? You get hired by customers to do what?
Yeah, so I work with companies at 3 different levels. The easiest to understand is I work one-on-one with product managers, user experience designers, sometimes engineers, on skill building. So I work as a coach. We do weekly sessions around things like I want to get better at experiment design. How do I know what the data means? How am I building a roadmap? Anything around, you don't go to school and get a degree in product management,
Sure.
so anything around skill building related to product management. Mm-hmm. I also work with teams. So in the product world, a team is usually a product manager, maybe a UX, user experience designer, a tech lead, a handful of engineers. So a lot around team dynamics. How do you take advantage of all the expertise on your team? How do you, as a team, solve a problem rather than as siloed functions? How do you tackle a problem? And then at the organizational level, I work usually with an executive team on things like product vision, strategy. How are you setting the context so that the rest of your company can make good product decisions?
Okay. When you were at, we first became acquainted when you chose Kindling, and you worked with it and set up a process for one of our customers, and you've written about it extensively, and it's really great. Why did you choose an idea management solution? What was the problem that you, as a product manager leading a product team, what was the problem you had that you were looking to a tool set to help you solve?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was introduced to Kindling when I was while I was running a product team. And I really wanted to look at how do I get everybody in the company involved in generating ideas. That's a really important part of my product philosophy. A lot of product managers think about the role of product management as it's my job to have all the ideas. I'm solely responsible for making sure that my product is successful. Now, I do agree that the product manager is responsible for making the product successful. I don't agree with solely, and I also don't agree with, therefore, I have to have all the ideas. I much prefer this concept of I'm the steward of ideas, and any product manager's job is to define the process or the criteria by which we're going to determine whether or not we should pursue an idea. And I genuinely believe that everybody in the company, and even outside the company, customers, consumers, I think you can push this concept pretty broadly. How do you get more ideas into the pool?
So the role of product management is less, you said steward, less I must decide that this is what we do, and more I must define a process by which everybody can contribute and communicate and understand kind of the rules of the road of that process.
Yeah, I think the challenge is when an individual makes the decision, we don't make good decisions. So especially in a corporate environment, so things like the highest paid opinion in the room usually carries a lot of weight. And I think the challenge there is
Which is really common.
Yeah, very common. So just yesterday I was emailing back and forth with the CEO of one of my clients who had very specific product ideas and was asking for advice about how to communicate those ideas to his product manager. And they were ideas at the level of, they were features. I think we should build these 3 features. The challenge there is that that CEO doesn't spend all day thinking about that product. He's a CEO of a fairly reasonable sized company. He has lots of other jobs. And that product manager does think about it all day long, but doesn't necessarily have the expertise of the whole building in his head. So rather than having the product manager be in this role of judge, this is a good idea, this is not a good idea, I really encourage product managers to think about, how will I know if an idea is good or not? So that if my CEO comes to me and says, we should do X, Y, and Z, I can say, well, let's look at how we might evaluate X, Y, and Z.
So how do you know if an idea is good or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's like the $1 million question, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it starts with, in a business context, I start to look at, how do we know if our customer or our user is successful? What's the journey they go on? This concept of a customer journey has gained in popularity recently, and I've been happy to see that. So let's take Kindling for an example. I'm getting up to speed on using Kindling as a customer. Maybe the journey that I go through is I get people in my company to generate ideas. At some point, I needed to evaluate those ideas. Ultimately, eventually, I'm making a decision. So as a customer, in order for me to be successful with Kindling, I need to get all the way through to making decisions.
That's the journey.
If it doesn't help me make decisions, and I just have a pile of ideas, it's not really making me successful. So as a product manager, I would want to look at how are our customers doing moving through that journey and really identify where they're getting stuck. So based on usage data, based on talking to customers, what's the hard step? And then I would set a goal around that. So if people are getting stuck with idea evaluation, I would set a goal along the lines of, how do we get more ideas through the evaluation stage, or more customers engaging around idea evaluation? Whatever's right for that, for what I see in the data.
So now if somebody comes up to you, whether they're the highest paid person in the room or not, and says, I have an idea about how we should do X, you as a product team or product manager are armed with what? How do you...
How does that idea help me move more customers through idea evaluation?
Right. And if that's not one of our goals right now, thank you. That was great of you to share that with me, but it gives you sort of the procedure to push back on, right?
Yeah, so it's an idea that we should capture. This is actually one of the things I think that's great about Kindling. Let's say you come to me with an idea for how to get more people to add ideas to the system. I don't want to lose that. I want to capture it.
Sure.
But it's not my goal right now. It's not the problem that I'm solving. So I can say, Tim, that's a great idea. We're going to put it over here. We're going to capture it, but we're focused on idea evaluation.
Yep.
Really, my work as a product manager is, how do I estimate the impact of every idea that comes in around how do I improve idea evaluation?
Regardless of where they came from.
Yep. How do I get more customers moving through idea evaluation?
Yep.
And the beauty of this is it allows my sales team to have ideas. It allows my engineers to have ideas. It allows my CEO to participate. It allows customers to have ideas. And it all goes sort of into the big pool of ideas. And in theory, as a product manager, I've designed a process that takes all of those inputs and spits out, here's what we should build.
Okay, let's talk about that. So as somebody who's been involved in building product for a long time, there's absolutely no shortage of ideas coming from every direction to product management. That is not one of the constraints, right? Customers alone, once you have customers, will provide an endless stream of that. Then layer in sales and marketing and executives and your own product team ideas, right? So now there's this black box, which is the process that you've sort of set up, which provides the framework to turn all of that input into actionable output. What goes on in that black box? What is that?
Yeah, I think it starts with product vision and strategy. So every company, even if they're solving the same problem, they tackle it a little bit differently. So first filter is this something we would do as a company? Yes or no? If it goes into yes, then does it support my goal? Is it actually helping me move customers through idea evaluation?
So you should have a goal.
Absolutely. If it supports my goal, then I need to look at how much impact is it going to have against the goal. And that might be a back-of-the-napkin calculation. It might be based on comparable product changes. It might be based on what's my baseline. If I'm converting at 80%, I may not have a lot of room for improvement. If I'm converting at 15%, I might have a lot of room for improvement. And then ideally, I'm getting customer input. I'm looking at usage trends. I'm running at maybe an A/B test or some other type of experiment to really understand, is this idea, how do I know if this idea will work or not? What evidence can I collect either to support it or to refute it?
So if you then do gather, that's a lot of work. You gather all that evidence, you run tests, you talk to people, and you turn 100 potential things into 2 units of action. If people trust that black box, if they trust that process, they then believe in it and keep contributing to it, right? That's kind of the ideal.
Yeah, and actually, I talk about product managers do a lot of that work, but it's not always the case. So what's great about a centralized sort of database of all your ideas that anybody can access is, Tim, let's say that you have an idea, it goes into the black box. Part of the inputs are, what does the sales team think of this? What do our customers think of this? If they have access to the same system, I don't have to go hunt them down. They may already be contributing.
We look for that all the time when we are discussing an idea about our product, and then we see our customers weighing in and saying, yes, us too.
Yeah.
Or our customer support team, by extension of our customers. That's great evidence, right?
Yeah.
Looking for a pattern of behavior or problem across a large set of customers. That's great.
Yeah.
You may not get that if you're just talking to people in the hallway and you don't have that canonical central place.
Yeah, and as teams are distributed, as customers are around the world, it's just I like to think about it as in the tech world, we talk a lot about your database as your system of record. I like to think about idea management software as your innovative system of record. How do we have a centralized place where everybody can see what's inside the black box? It's not this mysterious, it's my idea, therefore I want to do it.
Yeah.
It's not the highest paid person in the room. It's that we've defined this process.
And we trust
you
it.
can watch the idea move through the process, and as it comes out the other side and we decided to develop it, everybody can see the history and can understand we made a good decision.
Something you write about a lot and is a really interesting topic is one of those tools that lives inside the black box, I think, and you mentioned it before, which is A/B testing.
Yeah.
And there's some really interesting conversation going on about A/B testing, and just talk about it generally. It's a useful tool. What do you think about it? What do you counsel your product teams to do with A/B testing?
Yeah, so I think it's great that we're talking about A/B testing. I think in the business world, we get really focused on being right and being certain. So there's a psychologist, Carl Weck, out of the University of Michigan, that wrote a paper about where he defines wisdom. And he defines it as the balance between confidence in what you know with doubting what you know. And I think in the business world, we're really good at being confident in what we know. How many companies build their roadmaps by a room full of executives just prioritizing features?
Sure.
What's missing in that equation is, what if we're wrong? And you're betting a lot of your company's future on the fact that you're right. So how do you introduce doubt into that equation? And what's great about A/B testing is that you're basically saying this might not work. So instead of giving it to everybody, let's give it to a segment of our population and compare it against our old way and only release it if it works. The challenge is it's a tool in our toolbox, and I think currently we're abusing the tool. So running an A/B test is really doing it well is really challenging. It requires having statistical knowledge. It requires understanding how to think like a scientist. These are things that your average product manager, your average interaction designer, even your average engineer don't have experience with. We also make the mistake of running one A/B test and making a decision based on that A/B test. Whereas if you look at where the research method came from, sort of the scientific academic world, in that world, we don't make decisions based on one test. What we do is we run a whole bunch of studies, we interview people, we do observations, we do surveys, we actually set up artificial experiments where we get data, and over a course of, say, 10 years, we look at all the studies that were done, and we grow our knowledge based on a huge body of knowledge. In the internet world, we run a test, and we say we know that green is better than red. So what happens is we have too much confidence in our test results. So that doesn't mean don't A/B test. I think it means
understand it as a tool and its limitations,
Yeah.
right? There's a post that went around recently talking about somebody who did AA testing to sort of throw some cold water on this notion of A/B testing by saying, look, I ran the same test on both sides and I got different numbers, therefore I could draw meaning. But the meaning you drew in that case was that there was no change. So it was kind of a paradox. So what I'm reading from what you're saying is A/B testing is net good because it does introduce the notion of doubt, and that's really, really important to come into product with that notion that what is the feedback loop by which we can discover if we're wrong, right?
Yep.
But to be wary of it and to understand it as a tool and its limitations.
Yeah.
Which is always a good idea to do.
Yeah, I think, and I'm going to be a fan of anything that helps us realize we might be wrong. But we're at the very beginning of learning how to use this tool. And rather than being dogmatic, I ran an A/B test, this is truth,
Yeah.
we can learn a lot from people that have been using these tools for decades before us.
Makes sense. So one of the things you've written about a lot, which I really liked, was this notion that idea management can save you time. This is a question we get asked all the time from our prospects and our customers. Something like, when I set up a process like this, how much time is it going to take me? How many people am I going to have to devote to it? Time. Everybody's busy, right? You kind of turned it on its head and talked about it for you being a net time saver, which I really was interested to read. And you talked about how once you have something that's centralized and searchable and canonical, and you can have a conversation in one place, particularly in the context of product, that can save you time because you're not having to repeat the same information over and over again. Love that. Tell me about how that plays out.
Yeah, so it goes back to this idea that we talked about earlier where your idea management tool can be a system of record. And you can capture over time not just what the idea is, but how the idea evolves over time, what you learn as you run experiments, all the support, or maybe sometimes refutation of an idea. And what that does is it captures what are the variables in context for how you made a decision around that idea. So oftentimes in an organization, a newer employee or somebody who wasn't involved in a decision in the past will suggest something that's already been done. And inevitably, somebody in the room will say, that'll never work, we tried that before. And this allows you to have something to go back and say, has something changed? Is there a variable that's different? Has our context changed where maybe we should reconsider this idea? So that's one way. It helps to keep people open to new ideas, even if you've tried it before. But it also helps with, every product manager on the planet could spend all day, every day defending their roadmap. And let's say a salesperson gets a feature request, and the product manager has already ruled it out, and for good reason. They've got lots of evidence that suggests it's not a good idea. They could re-engage in that conversation, or they could just say, go look at the history of that idea. Feel free to add to the conversation. Let us know if something's changed.
Sure.
But let's start from that shared context.
And that brings us full circle back to what I see as one of the central ideas in your writing, which is effective communication.
Yeah, definitely.
So keep effectively communicating through your blog.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Tim.